Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, you were talking about your emotional state. Obviously, it takes an immense toll on anyone going through what you went through. So tell me a little bit about, I know you're a big mental health advocate, you practice meditation, you're a yoga teacher on a little break.
Yeah, I'm on a break at the moment.
Because
I can't do anything.
because cancer. But you do your stretches and you're highly focused on your mental wellness. So tell me more, if you can, about that relationship and how you were affected mentally with your diagnosis.
I think that's something that is getting talked about more, but one of the hardest things I found was the emotional side of it all. The physical side, it sucks. It's not fun. Of course, I had the mastectomy. I didn't have further treatment, so I haven't been through chemo. I haven't been through radiotherapy, but it's something that you can get through.
Mm-hmm.
It's the mental stuff, I think, that, and I'm getting this, from myself, and also just from countless people that I see speaking about it, and that I also speak to about it as well. And that's the tough part, because it doesn't matter whether you get diagnosed at an early stage or at a later stage, it stays with you in your head.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously, the more advanced it is and the more that you have to go through, the more traumatic the experience. But once you're told you have cancer, that you can't unhear that, you can't unknow that. I think for me, so basically, sorry, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked here. But the mental part of it, what I found the most difficult initially anyway was the waiting for the answers, the waiting for the plan, waiting to find out what was going on. I like you said, I'm passionate about talking about mental health and the importance of kind of owning your mental health and looking after it, and not being afraid to talk about it, because as much as people say, oh, it's becoming less and less of a taboo, but people are still, they say that, but at the same time, it's kind of like still a bit, it's a little bit of a touchy subject. And I don't think it needs to be that way. I don't think it should be that way. So kind of like back it up for a second. Yeah. I have a long history with mental health. I was always growing up, I was a very anxious child. I was anxious young adult, I should say. I went through various bouts of depression when I was younger, into my mid-20s, really, it's kind of always been there, even now. It's not something that necessarily goes away, but it's something that really dominated the first kind of 25 to 30 years of my life. And in the last several years, the last like 5 years or so, I'd say, I've really not changed, but I've really kind of turned it on its head and not let it control my life like it used to. And that's through a whole bunch of different ways, different things that I have done. I kind of got to a point where I got so sick of always feeling a certain way and having my life be a certain way, and I wanted to do something about it. It's not to say that people that you can just want to do something about it and it goes away, but I don't know. I guess instead of fighting it, I learned to live with it, and in a way that improved my life, I guess, if you will. I I was in therapy a lot. I was on medication at one point for a while, which I'm no longer on. I haven't been on medication in about 10 years now. But it's when I started doing yoga, I started meditating, I changed my diet, my lifestyle, and all of these things added up, and they really helped me kind of have a really sound frame of mind. Also, to be honest, leaving New York made a big difference. I love New York, but there's that OK Go song, New York, I love you, but you're bringing me down. I don't know if you know it, but it's kind of how I felt by the time I left. I was like, I can't be here anymore. This place is killing me. And all these things, they've really helped and changed my life. And here it's a little bit more of a taboo subject in the UK, but in New York, like, everybody's got a therapist. Everybody's working on their mental health. It's not an uncommon thing. But all this to say that by the time this year that I got my diagnosis, I was mentally in the best place that I'd probably ever been in. And it's not to say that the depression and the anxiety doesn't still live in me, because it does. It doesn't just go away. It's not that I do the work and it's gone. Like, it doesn't work that way. But I've learned how to manage it. I've learned how to, for me, and it's different for everybody, and I've learned to be able to do this without medication. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes you need medication. It's so bio-individual. It's so different for different people. But I got to this place where I was doing really well. And when I would start to feel that, I call it my invisible army, because they kind of just creep in, and all of a sudden you're feeling really good. And then all of a sudden you're really anxious and you're depressed, and it just kind of sneaks up on you. It sneaks up on you. And it's like little things. And then all of a sudden, you had a bad day, and then you realize, wait, actually, it's been a few weeks and I'm not feeling right. I've learned to live with it. And when it creeps up, I know what I need to do to level it out. So when this whole cancer thing happened, it really threw me at first. And it's funny because when I was younger, I was always so nervous about everything, but especially two things that were my biggest fears were cancer and pandemics. And then flash forward, I mean, literally, like, I freak out about both. I always thought I was dying, and I always thought that there was going to be a pandemic, and I was always so nervous about it. Flash forward to now, where we're in this pandemic, and I get cancer in it, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm okay, I'm here, my body's intact, I'm surviving, I'm alive, I'm okay. And I actually handled it so much better than I thought I would.
Mm-hmm.
But initially, when I went to have all those tests done, and they said, this is what we think it is, you're going to have to wait a week to find out for sure an answer, I was a mess. And it was so difficult. And I thought, how am I going to do this? Oh my God, how do I? And all those insecurities, all those anxieties, all those fears kind of just flushed up immediately, which, I mean, would happen to anybody, even if you didn't spend your whole life worrying about it. You hear this kind of news and you don't know. And it's a horrible feeling. You feel completely out of control, because you are, essentially. Mm-hmm. It's not in your control.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I had an answer, as soon as I had official word, this is what it is, and this is what we need to do about it, I felt okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think they must have thought I was mad, because on the day that I went in to get my results and I found out the diagnosis, the doctor said, really sorry, but it's cancer, it's early stage cancer. And I just was like, oh, that's great. And I started laughing, and I was clapping, and I was like, I was smiling. And they're like, are you okay? And I'm looking at my husband, and I'm like, we can do something about it. I was just so grateful that it wasn't anything worse than what I thought it was. And I felt so relieved. And at that point, I kind of went into this fight mode. I said, okay, cool. I can do this. I can conquer this. I've just got to get through the surgery, get through this, and we're going to be good. But what they don't tell you then is once you finish the surgery, that's where it gets hard.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, it's right from the start. It's a very emotional, very difficult process. And for some people, it's after their surgery. And some people just kind of coast through it. Honestly, there are people who get through it and they're like, I'm okay. But I remember my nurse saying to me that, you know, most people fall in one of those two camps. Either they're kind of falling apart from the start or it happens after their surgery. And I fell into the latter camp. And there was a good couple of months after that where it was like that Simon and Garfunkel song, you know, hello darkness, my old friend. And I just had this constant low level anxiety that it was unfamiliar. I thought, what is this? I couldn't even remember. I was like, oh yes, I remember what this is, because it had been so long since I'd had it at that kind of scale. And I would go up and down and up and down and up and down in ways that I hadn't in so long. And it was tough, because I was like, I've done so much to get to this point, and now this is just completely taking me back down.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny, because I remember talking to my mom about this at one point, because I read a lot about different Eastern philosophies, and I have such a deep faith in a greater power than us. And it's not a religious thing at all. It's just a spiritual grounding, if you will. That we always have our angels with us. We have spirits with us. We're being guided. We're being led. Very much of the philosophy that, you know, the only thing that's certain in life is that everything is going to change. Nothing is permanent. Be here now. Be in this present moment. And I remember kind of early on my mom saying to me, I think you might need to stop reading about this stuff for a little while, because there was one point where I was getting a little bit too philosophical, like, if it's my time, it's my time, you know. This is life too. This is all part of it too, and nothing is permanent. And she's like, okay, I want you to put these books down.
You're 34. Get a little bit mad.
And I'm sitting there like, I've lived a good life. Like, she's like, this is, you know, you gotta make a choice. And but then as soon as I did that, that's kind of when all of the darkness started to come in again for me. And I thought to myself, you know, I don't want to live in this place again. I spent so much of my life trying to get out of this place, and I'll be damned if I let cancer take over again. Well, again, if I let it take over, because cancer is a part of me, but it's not all of me. It doesn't define me. And kind of from that point, once I kind of had that moment of, I'm not going to let this dominate. I'm not going to let this ruin all of the work I've done to get here. It started to shift. And I don't know if you've read or heard of Dr. Edith Eger. She wrote this book, The Choice, and she's just had another book come out called The Gift. She's a remarkable woman, and I highly recommend her books. She's 92 years old. Is she 92? She might be 94 now. And she's a Holocaust survivor. She was in Auschwitz. And she comes kind of from the Viktor Frankl, I don't know if you know Viktor Frankl, School of Thought, Man's Search for Meaning. And I'm so inspired and informed by these people who say, nobody can take what you put in your own mind. You know, nobody can change your thoughts but you. Nobody, you know, everything can happen around you to you, but nobody can take what you put in your mind.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that I don't have bad days, and it's not to say that this is easy, and it's not to say that you can just snap out of it and everything's okay, because it's not like that at all. There's not a day, not an hour that goes by that I don't think about this, that I don't have a moment of fear or worry about it. But I'm consciously saying to myself that I can choose my thoughts here, is what I'm trying to get at. doesn't make the bad stuff go away. It doesn't make it necessarily easier to deal with. It doesn't mean that I don't feel depressed or anxious or low. I felt that way earlier today a lot. Earlier I was like, how am I going to do this call? I'm really not feeling great. But I went out, I went for a long walk, cleared my head, centered myself, got in the kind of present moment, and said, what can I control? What is going on right now? What's happening around me? How am I? I'm here. I'm feeling, I'm intact. I mean, I know you know what I'm getting at. And I think that has helped me so much. This kind of idea of I can choose what I put in my head. I can choose how I shape this experience for myself emotionally. And that includes allowing the bad thoughts to come. That includes the dark days. You're just spiritually bypassing when you try to pretend those don't exist. And you can't do that because that's not going to help you either. The only way through it... Wait, what is he saying? The only way around it is through it. Or whatever it is. If you want to get through it, you've got to literally go through it.
Yeah.
It's just deep thoughts.